Representative Bonner, it's nice to see you at the testifiers table. All right.
It's good to be at the testifiers table.
So would you like to move that House File 197 be re-referred to the General Register?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to ask that we, or move that we move House File 197 to the General Register, and I do have an amendment.
All right. Would you like to speak to your amendment?
Yes, briefly, the amendment is actually quite simple. It is basically changing out a reference to an old federal resolution number and inserting the new and up-to-date number. So you'll see on page 3, line 8, we are going to delete 891 and insert 25 and add the Senate resolution number 4.
Thank you very much. Members, is there any discussion to the amendment? Seeing no discussion, all of those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none, the amendment is adopted. Please speak to your bill as amended.
Thank you. Madam Chair and members, House File 197 proposes a federal resolution to Congress to acknowledge that the requirements have been met to ratify the ERA as the 28th Amendment of the United States Constitution. The 28th Amendment itself is quite simple and quite elegant. It states equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of sex. The federal resolution acknowledges that the conditions of Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution have been satisfied. Article 5 provides two basic requirements. The first that must be met in order to amend the U.S. Constitution. First, it must be ratified by a 2/3 majority in both houses of Congress. And second, it must be ratified by 3/4 of a majority of states. Having passed a 2/3 majority of both houses of Congress in 1972, and 3/4 of the states, or 38 of 50, that threshold having been met, the law states that it shall take effect 2 years from the date of final ratification. That date having passed, we ask Congress to take action in accordance with the law and acknowledge the ERA as the 28th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. America was built on the ideal of freedom, promised to all, but realized by a select few. For if one of us is not equal in the eyes of the law, none of us are truly free. The Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg famously asked, "I ask no favor for my sex. All I ask is for our brethren, is that they take their feet off our necks." The time has passed to ponder and pontificate. The time to act is now on this federal resolution. We have the power to restore the dream of freedom and of equality under the law, to make it a shared destiny for all citizens. And finally, in the words of Lyndon B. Johnson, we have talked long enough in this country about equal rights. We have talked for 100 years or more. It is time now to write the next chapter and to write it in the books of law. And with that, committee members, I ask for your yes vote.
Thank you, Representative Bonner. Next, we will move on to testimony. You have with you today two testifiers. Betty Folliard, if you'd please state your name for the record. Welcome back to the House. And I ask that you please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Betty Folliard. Madam Chair and members of the committee, happy Women's History Month here. So that's what we are here to celebrate and to look at how far we have yet to go. This is a simple resolution to Congress encouraging our leaders to enact the now fully ratified Equal Rights Amendment, the ERA. Minnesota is we ratified it in 1973, and Minnesota State Senate passed a similar resolution in 2016 on an overwhelmingly bipartisan vote of 56-6. This is a good thing. The essential concept of this resolution is to provide equal treatment under the law for all in this country. What will the ERA do? The ERA will remove ambiguity in the law to provide consistency in our court system against sex discrimination. Currently, there are a patchwork of laws across the country, and the ERA will lend constitutional consistency in the law regardless of where you travel from state to state. The ERA will provide a constitutional safeguard against rollbacks in the gains that girls and women and LGBTQIA individuals have made in the last centuries. It will bring the United States in line with the rest of the world. Currently, 85% of the UN member states have a provision in their constitution that specifically addresses gender equality, and a further 115 of them have a provision that prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex. So why do we need the ERA still? Because women make on average 82 cents to a man's dollar, with much, much larger inequities for Black, Indigenous, Asian, Latinx, and women of color. Because twice as many women as men over the age of 65 live in poverty. Because 2/3 of minimum wage earners are women and 2/3 of tip workers are women. Because less than 1% of rapists will ever lead, that rapes will ever lead to felony convictions. Because we're still fighting the battle for voting rights for all. Because 1 in 5 college women will experience sexual assault. Because women still get fired for being pregnant. Because childcare can cost more than college. Because some bosses deny workers birth control coverage. Because we're one of only 3 industrialized countries in the world that have no paid maternity leave. Because women fight and die for their country and they still don't have equal rights. And because women are not willing to wait another 246 years for equality. That's why. Girls and women comprise over half the population of the United States. The ERA will guarantee them equality so that they cannot be treated as lesser than. The ERA will embed the fundamental guarantee in the U.S. Constitution for equal rights for all people, ensuring that individuals, regardless of sex, are treated equally under the law. I respectfully request your yes vote, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your testimony. It's wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you.
Next, we have Suzanne Wilhite. If you please come, welcome to the committee. State your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Suzanne Wilhite, volunteer president with ERA Minnesota, and happy to be here, Madam Chair and representatives. I speak to you briefly today about the Equal Rights Amendment because I didn't know about this until 1982 when the timeline was announced. The ERA is very important and needs to be passed at the federal level. Thank you for allowing me to testify for House File 197. We need the 28th Amendment, and the U.S. Constitution currently does not provide equal legal rights for all people. People have had to be added in, and we've seen this with the amendments that have occurred. The Equal Rights Amendment is still needed. We need it for equal pay for equal work, for fair health care coverage, for protection against sexual violence, as Betty has mentioned, and workplace discrimination. Having been introduced in 1923 and it is now 2023, 100 years is too long to wait for equality. I know that the Minnesota legislature has approved this bill in past years, and it is still needed to support the passage at the federal level. So I respect your decisions and request a yes vote in support of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Bonner, I do not see any additional amendments to your bill. I will move to member discussion. Members, do you have any questions, concerns? Representative Harder.
Thank you, Chair Cleavorn and Representative Bonner. I have, I think, a few questions here on this one. So according to this resolution, this was first ratified in Minnesota in 1973. Things have vastly changed since then. We have a lot of departments. There's been bills, you know, regarding a lot of the items here with discrimination towards girls and women. But there's a couple of things in here. I just need more clarification as to what this means. And it has to do with, it talks about this gender justice, this gender expansive. Can you please expand? What exactly does that mean?
Representative Bonner.
Can you please point to the line that you're referring to?
Yes, I can. Okay, I am looking at 1.9, and then I'm also looking at 1.22.
And,
Representative Bonner.
okay. Thank you for the question. So, you know, I think what we have seen historically here, for particularly when we talk about the concept of justice, and I think my testifiers alluded to this a little bit in their testimony, you know, we have fought, even within the last 4 years since I've been in the legislature, we have had to fight hard for things that we really shouldn't be fighting for at this time. Things like making sure that rape kits get tested so that we can bring criminals to justice, that we don't have young women that are falling prey. What's interesting about that in particular item is that we also found, and the BCA has found some really interesting correlations between data between rape victims and other crimes, which we never knew about. If we had done that testing, we might know more about that and have a better chance of success at finding and bringing those individuals to justice. We've had, in the last 4 years, we've repealed the marital rape exception. We've closed loopholes on sexual assault that have gone latent for years. It wasn't until actually one of our own former legislators and now a Minnesota Supreme Court justice brought to light that loophole once again and said, it's time to fix this. We're talking about making sure that we are not having young women being married off at young ages that are highly inappropriate. There are so many areas in which justice is not served for young women. When you talk about domestic violence, there are places in this state right now where women are very concerned that they are not getting justice, to the point where they are stopping to come forward when they're being abused because they know the justice system is not serving them. There are many, many more examples that I could give here today, but I think that is probably more than sufficient for the moment. And I think that those issues are issues that have continued to sort of take a back seat and to not be brought forward. And so I think the time to really act on a lot of those items is now, and to bring that forward and into the limelight. So we have a long way to go, but certainly I'm delighted that in the last 4 years, this body, and in fact, many of the members around this table, have actually helped to right some of those wrongs. And I want to thank each and every one of you, Republican, Democrat, and across the spectrum for that. With that, I will be silent and see if my testifier has anything she'd like to add.
I'd like to go back to, she said she had a couple of questions.
okay.
So thank you, Representative Bonner. Representative Harder, if you have a couple of questions you'd like to ask at the same time, and then we can maybe see if they can all be answered together.
Yes, thank you, Chair Cleaborn.
Representative Harder.
Yes, the question that I'm centering around is this new term that seems to be showing up everywhere, and I'm not clear what exactly qualifies this gender expansive. I need clarification. What exactly is gender expansive people? Who are these people?
Thank you, Representative Harder.
May I? Madam Chair and Representative
If you please state your name for the record.
Betty Folliard. What we're talking about is LGBTQIA and non-binary people in that language. And that's the language that Nevada just passed through their state legislature. Have I got that right? Mm-hmm. Yes, that's the language that Nevada just passed through 2 consecutive legislatures. Then it went on to their state ballot, and the voters voted for it almost 58%, overwhelmingly. It's language that shouldn't be confusing unless you want me to spell it out. It's lesbian, it's gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, et cetera, non-binary, et cetera. So that's kind of what we're talking about there. So it's everybody. I mean, the thing about the Equal Rights Amendment is that it is for everybody. And in fact, 25 years ago, David Schultz did a study. He's a professor at Hamlin Mitchell Law School, and he had his legal students do a study on the Equal Rights Amendment, and it found that men were using it at that time more than women. So it's something that is something that's available to everybody. If you are being discriminated on the basis of sex or gender, you have the opportunity to use the Equal Rights Amendment.
Thank you. Representative Harder, is there a follow-up?
Yes, there is. Okay, so thank you for that clarification. And I understand the LGBTQ, okay, the whole group. You know, if they can choose who they wish to partner with, that is their choose. That is their choice. The part that I'm going to take issue with is that I am a woman. I was born that way. You cannot change that. So you are including people, if I understand this correctly, that are changing because that's their choice. I mean, they can do that, right? But now you're including people that were not born as girls. They're something else. So now they're being included. So the perception that I have is that now I'm potentially going to be excluded because now I'm coming up with that we are all equal, but apparently some people are more equal than others. I mean, I struggle with that.
Madam Chair?
1 moment. I didn't really hear a question. I just heard a comment.
Okay.
Right.
I don't know if there really is a question. I just have,
I would like
because
to
it's
move
changed.
to-
The language has changed. So why has the language changed from
It's the same
1972 or
language.
3? I just need clarification on
Yeah.
that, please.
Right. Thank you. Then
Madam Chair, if I may
Representative
clarify briefly. Just to be clear, this is language within the federal resolution itself. However, the language of the actual amendment itself has not changed. It is that the equality under the law may not be denied or abridged on the basis of sex. There is also a recent court decision on the higher courts that suggested that the word sex is actually broadly interpreted to mean a variety of definitions, and that includes the LGBTQIA community, and that is the decision of the higher courts. So the word itself in the resolution and in the 28th Amendment is the word sex, but again, the courts interpret that a little bit more broadly. This resolution just alludes to that fact.
thank you, Representative Bonner. Representative Koznick, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Representative Bonner. I'm a proud dad of 2 teenage daughters. Was here to committee a little late today because my youngest daughter is competing in a soccer tournament out of state, so I drove her and my wife to the airport this morning. So, I came a little late to committee, but I get so much joy out of watching them compete. And my older daughter is captain of her cross-country team, and her track team. And she's also doing some side training in between at the University of Minnesota just for extra competition. And they actually compete, men and women, they go by their times. And that's okay because that's her choice. But how does this bill, does it protect like high school sports where she competes on the girls' cross-country team with other girls, or the track team with other biological girls? The question was raised with the transgender, and that's kind of, how does that affect it in here? Because I think that's important, because I want my girls and all our girls and boys to be able to compete and enjoy their sports or activities and have the protection of competing with similar biological makeups to kind of keep it fair, because there are differences biologically. And so how does this affect something like that?
Thank you, Representative Koznick. I'm going to add, we still have 2 more bills. So I want to make sure that, please keep your answer as brief as
I'll
possible.
be brief. Thank you, Madam Chair. I do want to point out that this bill in itself is simply a federal resolution to Congress asking them to acknowledge that the conditions of Article 5, in order to become an amendment of the United States Constitution, have in fact been met, and that we should publish the 28th Amendment, having been ratified by a collection of states that total 38, over 3/4, that we've met those conditions, and that we should in fact publish the 28th Amendment. So this bill itself actually has no impact on any of that question. This is specifically a resolution just acknowledging that we have met the requirements, and we are asking that the 28th Amendment now be published.
Thank you, Representative. Are you good?
But just a quick comment, and I know we've got lots of bills and
There are
it's
2
a
more
busy committee.
members who want to speak as well.
Yeah, I guess I don't think it doesn't have any impact. And what we do here, and even though this isn't a bill, I generally don't like resolutions, but it does have an impact, and there's a concern there for protection, and not just my daughters, but all our daughters, to have fair competition. And when expanding the definition of women and girls has some concerns. So it does have an impact to me, and so I think we need to acknowledge that concern. Thank you.
I'll acknowledge your parental concern. Representative Herr.
It's my legislative concern.
Oh, thank you. Next, then we have Lead Nash.
I'll wait for the next,
She's just passed, so it's your turn.
I'll wait for the next go-round of the next ERA bill.
Oh, perfect. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Okay, so I see no further discussion to this House File 197 as amended. So would you like to renew your motion that House File 197 as amended be re-referred to the General Register?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would in fact like to renew my motion to have House File 197 referred
As
to...
amended.
As amended, referred to the General Register.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Hearing 3, the motion prevails. The motion is adopted, and House File 197 as amended is re-referred to the General Register.
Thank you, Madam Chair.